At the last Nintendo Direct, Nintendo dropped an absolute massive bombshell about the upcoming waves from the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. That was of course the addition of brand new characters, starting off with Birdo. Now I really wanted to make a video talking about this, but... So since I already made a video talking about characters in which I want brought back, I thought I should use this opportunity to predict another thing they could possibly bring back in the future. So today, instead of characters, we're going to be talking about the cut items from the Mario Kart franchise. Items are just as important to the Mario Kart series as the characters themselves. They're what make the game so exciting to play, which in turn also makes them quite exciting to speculate about. There are just over 30 items from previous Mario Kart games that are not in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. In this video, we're going to look at what each of those items did and discuss which ones I think will come back and which ones I'd want to come back. Okay, well, I'm not including the arcade games because... If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right into our first game, Super Mario Kart. Being the first Mario Kart game, you may expect for there to not be any items cut between this and future entries. Technically that is true, all of the items that players can use are in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, however that also means it's technically not true. First off, let's look at the feather. As I said, this is in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, however it's just a battle mode exclusive item. In Super Mario Kart, the item could be used to jump, which was helpful as the walls were short enough to let the players take shortcuts. In 8 Deluxe though, there's no way that the feather could be any actual help in races. The tracks were simply not designed with it in mind, so keeping it as a battle mode exclusive makes perfect sense to me. I don't really see them adding this to races anytime soon. Now that covers all of the items the player can use, however there are actually 3 more items we need to talk about. But how? All of the items on screen are definitely in 8 Deluxe. Well, what if I told you there are actually 3 computer exclusive items? In Super Mario Kart, each of the computer racers have items that they can use at any time. Most of them are just things the player can use, however Peach, Toad, Bowser, and Yoshi each got items that the players can't use. For Peach and Toad, they got access to the Poison Mushroom. This basically acts like a banana that they can throw into the track, however instead of just spinning the player out when hit, the player will actually shrink as if they got hit with lightning. I think this is a really interesting item, and I would honestly love to see it in the future. I think it'd be especially cool if they took the approach the Super Smash Bros. Series does for their Poison Mushroom, where it looks very similar to the normal mushroom. That way you could place the item on the track to make it look like someone just dropped a mushroom, which could make this a very effective trap. While I sadly don't think it's very likely to come still, it's definitely an item I would be happy to see. The other 2 items are far less interesting though. Bowser gets fireballs and Yoshi gets the Yoshi eggs, which both just act like glorified bananas. Both of these items do get different uses in future games, which we'll talk about later, but their versions from this game certainly are never coming back. Alright, now it's time for Mario Kart 64, where we don't have to worry about the items only technically not being here, as the 2 from this game are completely missing from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. First off, we have the Banana Bunch. Now of course we all know and love the triple bananas, which act as pretty solid defensive items from shells. Those are of course in 8 Deluxe, however in Mario Kart 64 you could hold not 3, but 5 bananas behind you at once. This was an absurdly powerful item, especially considering they didn't circle the player but just followed behind them, making them much more effective defenses against red shells. While this item is undeniably very cool, I honestly don't think it'll come back. Like I said, we already had the triple banana, and I also feel like 5 bananas would be a balancing nightmare because it could easily let first place break away unchallenged. Our next item though turns out to be the one that I think is the most likely to make a comeback. It's an item so well known that many forget that it isn't in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that being the fake item box. As the name implies, this takes the look of a slightly altered item box, but instead of giving the player an item, it'd kill them if ran into. Now this is a sort of controversial item for many reasons. For one, it's not able to defend you from behind, and 2, it's gotten a lot more obvious over time. I mean, come on, you'd have to be a real idiot to get tricked by this. However, if they port the version from Mario Kart 64 where it's very hard to tell the difference, I think it could be a very fun item. The reason I think this item is so likely is just because of how often it's been seen in the series, making appearances in Mario Kart 64, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario Kart DS, and Mario Kart Wii. Now it does have the massive disadvantage of not being in Tour, which most of the DLC seems to be based on, but I think the item is just so well known that they would add it regardless. Heck, who knows, maybe they'll even add it to Tour later down the line. Mario Kart Super Circuit didn't have any new items for us, so now it's time to take a look at Double Dash, which has the most cut items aside from Mario Kart Tour. Now that's mostly because of its character exclusive item gimmick, where every pair had an item that only they could use. A lot of these items are really fun, so it's a shame most of them never came back. First, let's take a look at the 2 updated items we mentioned before back in Super Mario Kart. Fireballs act as the exclusive items for Mario and Luigi, with the fireballs even being color-coded to match the brothers. When used, 5 fireballs will be launched out, which will obviously be able to damage anyone in its path. While certainly an interesting item, I think it's safe to say it'll never return since Mario Kart 8 Deluxe already has the Fire Flower. Sure, they do act different with the fireballs using all of them at once, but I think they're too similar to be worth adding. The other item is the Yoshi Egg, being exclusive items for the Yoshi and Birdo pair, though Birdo of course gets the Birdo Egg. These act just like red shells, homing in on the racer in front of the player who used it. Upon making contact though, not only will the player get hit, but 3 other random items will spawn from the egg. This can include bombs, stars, mushrooms, red shells, green shells, fake item boxes, and bananas. This is definitely a really neat addition for an item, though it can be a bit counterproductive if it gives the player in front of you a star. Sadly though, I highly doubt this will return for one main reason. We don't know about it yet. The announcement at the Direct was all about Yoshi and Birdo, so don't you think it would have made sense to announce the egg items with them? Nintendo is weird though, so I guess we can never be sure. I mean, they did just announce Game Boy games for Switch Online with no sign of Mario Land 1 being put on it. Our other 4 items from Double Dash though have never been seen in the series before. First off, we have the Bowser Shell, which acts as the exclusive item for Bowser and Bowser Jr. This acts exactly like a green shell, but there's one catch. It's massive, making this one of the most fun items to use in the entire franchise. It's a fan favorite and for very good reason. It's just really cool. On top of being in Double Dash though, this was also lucky enough to make it into Mario Kart Tour, so I actually think this has a decent shot of coming to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I'd say it's probably just behind the fake item box in terms of likeliness. Our next item is the Giant Banana, which acts as the exclusive item for Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. This acts exactly like a banana, but there's one catch. It's wait, didn't we already do this? So yeah, basically everything I said for the Bowser Shell applies to this item, even including the fact that it was added to Tour. For that reason, I also think this one is pretty likely. Our next item is the Chain Chomp, being the exclusive item for Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. This basically would act like a bullet bill, dragging the player behind the Chain Chomp as it rushes down the track. It doesn't make the person who uses it invincible though, so it's definitely a worse item overall. I don't really see it coming back since we already had the bullet bill, but I wouldn't complain if it did. The final Double Dash item is the Heart, being the exclusive item for Peach and Daisy. This might be the most unique item we've talked about so far. When used, it'll spawn 2 hearts around the cart, which will protect players from oncoming attacks up to 2 times. Not only that, but the item that hits the player will actually be given to them where they can then use it themselves. The only exceptions are Blue Shells, Chain Chomps, and Bob-ombs, which completely ignore the shield, and Lightning, which won't hit them, but will completely break the heart shield. I really like the concept behind this item. It's unique from anything else in the series, and I think that gives this a massive advantage in terms of making a return. It also came back in Tour, which means it's got a solid shot. It's not as popular as the Bowser Shell, Giant Banana, or fake item box, so I do think it is a bit less likely, but I still think it has a good chance. Mario Kart DS doesn't have anything new for us, so that brings us to Mario Kart Wii. This game has 3 items for us to look at, and they're definitely some of the most controversial in the series. First off is the Mega Mushroom, which of the 3 is the most liked. This will make the player become giant, which will let them squish their opponents and become invincible, except to stars and bullets. That by itself would have been good enough, but the player will also get a speed boost while using the item, even allowing them to cut through the off-road. I have always thought this was a neat little item that acted as a slightly more unique star. The more variety in items the better for me, so this is one I'd love to see come back. I also do think it's got a solid chance, seeing as it did come back in Mario Kart Tour. The other 2 Mario Kart Wii items are definitely not as positive though. The POW block acts like a lightning where it hits everyone in the race. However, it only hits them if they're on the ground, and it only deals damage instead of shrinking them. The reason this item was so annoying was because it showed up way too often. Additionally, you could just avoid its effects by drift hopping. No one really wants this item back, and seeing as it's not even in Tour, I think we're safe from the POW block. The final Mario Kart Wii item, however, might just be the single worst item in the entire franchise. That item is, of course, the infamous Thunder Cloud. When used, well, more like when collected, considering this item automatically uses itself, great start already, it will give the player a small speed boost, allowing them to go into the off-road for a limited time. Now that might seem like a good thing, right? Well, it's what happens after that time limit runs out that makes this item so bad. After a few seconds, the Thundercloud will strike, causing the player with the item to shrink. That's right, this item damages the player who uses it. Now yes, you can get rid of it, all you have to do is bump into another racer and the curse will be transferred, but considering this item activates automatically, there's almost no way to use it strategically. This was always the bane of my existence back when I played Mario Kart Wii, so I'm very happy it never returned, not even in Tour. That also seems to point to it not coming back, which is definitely good. Additionally, the double item gimmick in 8 Deluxe wouldn't really work with the Thundercloud's auto activation, so I think we're safe from this ever coming back. Mario Kart 7 only has 2 items to talk about here. First is the Lucky 7. It's literally the exact same as the Crazy 8, but you don't get a coin with it. This is not coming back. Our next item though is a bit more interesting, being the Super Leaf. This would give your cart a tail for a limited amount of time, and by hitting the item button again, you could swing it around you. This would damage other racers and break items coming towards you. It certainly wasn't the best item in the world, but I always thought it was a pretty creative idea. It worked decently as a defensive option, and if you're in the pack, it could work pretty good offensively as well. I always heard people hated this item, but I don't know, it's a lot better than the POW and Thundercloud at least. Considering it came back in Tour 2, I think it has a decent shot to return. I'd say it's a bit more likely than the Heart, but not quite as likely as the Bowser Shell, Giant Banana, or fake item box. But now it's time for the game with the by far most items in the mainline Mario Kart series, Mario Kart Tour. Now just as a warning, I have barely touched Tour at all, so if I get anything wrong about these items, I'll make sure to pin a comment saying so. This game is also still updating, getting new items every so often, so keep in mind that this video was made in February of 2023. Anyway, disclaimers aside, the items here are definitely an odd mix. First, let's start with an easy one. The double bombs are not going to be returning. This item is exactly as it says, 2 bombs. These will circle around the player and you'll need to throw them or face exploding yourself. Also, Also, Mario Kart Tour has an upgrading system which I will not be mentioning for future items, but if used here you get 3 bombs. This would just be a pretty boring item to add, so I don't see them doing it. On the topic of bombs though, I could actually see the Giga Bomb happening. This is a massive version of a normal bomb, and since we already covered 2 other massive items, I could see this one coming with them. It's definitely not as likely as the Bowser Shell and Giant Banana since those have more of a history, but I know I'd be pretty happy to see the Giga Bomb. Oh, I guess it is worth mentioning that this will automatically explode after a while, so throw it quickly. One common type of item in Mario Kart Tour are the cannons, in which there are 3. The bomb cannons, the mushroom cannons, and the banana barrels. Okay, I know the last one are barrels, but they act the same, shut up. These will automatically launch several of the item it's based on in front of you, which can cause a lot of chaos. This is really interesting as it's an item that can act as both a help and detriment to the player that used it and its surrounding racers. Honestly, I like the mechanic a ton, and I think it could be perfect for 8 Deluxe. It's sort of hard to tell which of the Tour exclusive items could get added since they're all obviously in the most recent entry, but since this gimmick was repeated more than once, I could see it happening. Oh yeah, I guess I should add on the coin box here too, which does a similar thing but for coins. Considering this is a lot less exciting than the other 3, this is probably the least likely. I guess I could see it happening if the other 3 come over though. Alright, our remaining 6 items are all unique from one another. The bubble acts as a really strange version of the bullet bill. This will bring the player forward a bit, however you're still able to control the racer once they're inside the bubble. It'll protect you from one hit, but it'll cause the bubble to pop, so overall, this is just the worst bullet. I definitely don't see this one coming to 8 anytime soon. The dash ring though is a fairly interesting item. When used, it'll spawn 3 rings on the track that'll act as dash panels. Both the player that used this item and the racers around them can use these rings, which I do honestly think makes this not really that helpful. I don't really think these will ever come, especially considering they would have to code spawning locations for them on every track, which I'm sure would be a nightmare. Considering it's not even a popular item among fans, the effort definitely wouldn't be worth it. But now we come to a Tour exclusive item that I actually really like. That might just be because it's one of my favorite Mario power-ups, but I just can't help but love the Ice Flower. This will give the player access to 3 ice balls which they can then throw out to freeze their opponents. Being frozen will cause them to slide around a bit, which can put them in a really awkward spot. Considering this is both a very popular Mario power-up and has a unique use that no other item has, I could definitely see Nintendo adding this into Deluxe. Oh, who am I kidding? They never added it to Mario Maker, why would they add it here? Another popular power-up turned item in Tour is the Super Bell. Sadly though, it's not really that unique, just acting as the sound horn, but the shockwave activates 3 times consecutively. The only reason I could ever see Nintendo adding this to 8 is because the Super Bell is quite popular in the mainline Mario series, but otherwise this would be a bit of a waste. Our last 2 items I almost didn't include because for some reason they didn't appear on the first few lists of items I looked at for Tour. Luckily I did remember seeing them before, but I am a bit scared that means I missed an item I haven't seen yet. Well anyways, first we have the hammer. This lets you throw either 5 hammers in front of you or 3 behind you, damaging anyone that gets hit by them. The hammers will bounce on the ground twice before disappearing. This will also be able to home in on the racer in front of you, however that only happens if they're close by. I honestly think that proximity gimmick is really neat, and seeing as the hammers are a popular thing in the Mario series, appearing ever since the first Super Mario Bros, this does have a good chance to come to 8 Deluxe. I will say this does have the caveat of only really happening if the Hammer Bros come as a character. That could certainly happen, but seeing as there are a few more popular characters like Funky Kong and Pauline, that does hurt this item's chances a bit. But that brings us to our final item, being the capsule. This one is a lot less unique though, basically just being like fireballs but with only 3 instead of 5. On top of it not being unique, this also has the problem the last one had with it only really having a chance if a character comes, that of course being Fire Dr. Mario. So yeah, I sadly don't think this will come, but at the same time, that's not really too big of a loss. But anyways, that's it for this video. Is your favorite item in the entire series the invisible mushroom and you're mad at me for not talking about it? Let me know in the comments. Honestly, it was kind of surprising just how many unique items there were in the series that they could add. I do think there is a pretty good chance we see at least 1 or 2 of them come in the DLC, though it would likely be for everyone instead of needing to pay for it in the Booster Course Pass. Either way, I'm really excited to see what the rest of the waves have in store. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.